like a naughty schoolboy, he did not dare refuse her the right to chastise him for his wrongdoing. He had practically abducted the poor girl, after all.
"Yes, Mary."
He leaned heavily against the frame of the doorway to his own chambers.
"I know it has been a while since you've had a woman in this house. Might I advise sending to Bath for gowns that suit her? It would not be proper for her to wear Mrs. Fairfax's clothes."
This remark astounded him. Did Mary think he'd brought home a bit of muslin? Not a woman worthy of compassion. He caught himself suddenly astonished that he'd wished to defend Helen's character. How had she wormed her way into his heart so quickly?
"I'm afraid I don't take your meaning,"
he growled at Mary, daring her to make another remark against Helen. After everything that had happened to her, most of it his fault, he felt protective of her. Mary blinked, then narrowed her eyes with annoyance.
"I meant no offence to the young lady by saying she was not good enough to wear Mrs. Fairfax's clothes, sir. Rather, I meant that she is a great deal taller than Lady Clarissa was, and her fairer hair and skin require a much different colour in gowns. Not to mention fashion has changed in the last 7 years. If you will permit me, I will send for a better wardrobe for her tomorrow morning."
Mary lifted her chin, crossing her arms with an annoyed expression, as if expecting him to growl again. Gareth relaxed considerably.
"Yes, do what you see fit. I care not for fashion, but if it would make her happy."
He trailed off, surprised that he was thinking of what would please Helen, when at first she'd only been an object brought here to please him. It seemed he'd been quite moved by her tears.
"Do you wish for me to take a look at your injury?"
Mary's eyes dropped to his bloodied arm. He gave her a short jerk of his head.
"'Tis only a scratch. Miss Banks took it upon herself to shoot me."
"Shoot you?"
His housekeeper's voice rose an octave.
"And what, pray tell, were you doing to her that warranted such a reaction?"
He flashed her a weary, yet still charming grin.
"Well, that's the thing. I challenged her brother to a duel, and she showed up dressed like him and took his place. She shot me, accidentally, I think, before I realized she wasn't a man."
"Well, if you think you're well enough—"
She was still eyeing the wound with worry.
"I think I'll send for the doctor tomorrow and have him look it over in any case. Good night, sir."
Mary curtsied, the corners of her mouth twitching so slightly he wondered if he'd imagined it before she left him to his thoughts and he readied for bed. He stripped off his bloodied shirt and poured some water into his basin. The wound was superficial. The bullet had barely grazed him. He chuckled softly as he recalled Helen's wide, horrified eyes as she ran to help him in the field. Her first time to fire a pistol, and she had managed to graze him. Not bad for a woman. And what a woman she was. She was truly beautiful, with her soft, yielding lips of a green girl, the swell of perfect breasts, and the curve of a slender waist out to her wider hips, just made for his hands.
"God, it has been too long since I've had a woman,"
Gareth almost moaned. Among the many vices he'd acquired since his wife's death, seduction of other women hadn't been one of them. He hadn't the will or desire to bed any woman he'd come across in the last 7 years. Yet the mere thought of Helen beneath him in his bed, golden waves of hair rippling out around her in rays of condensed sunlight, made him shake with desire. What pleasure he would have when he took her that first time. Her sheath would squeeze him tight as a fist, and he knew the pleasure would be beyond compare. It had taken every bit of restraint he possessed to do no more than bring her to climax with his hand. His cock tightened in his breeches, shoving hard against the buttons. He would have to control himself. She was a virgin, he had no doubt of that, not after he'd kissed her in the drawing-room. She had been dewy-eyed with the innocent desire of an untouched maiden, yet she'd responded with the sensual hunger that marked her for a future as a great lover to any lucky